Beverly stood in her kitchen, her hands dusted with flour as she carefully rolled out the cookie dough. The sweet smell of sugar and vanilla filled the room, blending with the soothing sounds of her children. Her children, Peter and Amelia, were giggling in the living room. Outside, the sun was setting, casting a soft golden glow over their small house at the end of Willow Lane. It was a peaceful evening, and everything seemed perfect. But peace doesn't always last. Life can change quickly, even when you're not expecting it. Larry, their pitch-black tabby cat, lay stretched out on the windowsill, his yellow eyes lazily watching the world outside. He seemed indifferent to everything around him, as he usually did. Nearby, Rufus, their gangly golden retriever full of energy, stood at the entrance to the room, his body twitching with excitement. The tension in the air was palpable, a storm brewing inside him. Something about today had Rufus more restless than usual. Maybe it was the energy in the air, or something building inside him. For a long time, Larry had been distant, never engaging with Rufus, who was always eager to play. Whenever Rufus tried to get his attention, Larry would respond with a cold glance or simply walk away. This left Rufus feeling frustrated and confused. But today, something was different. Rufus's restlessness had reached a boiling point, a culmination of pent-up energy and longing for connection. As Beverly summoned the children to come and get cookies, Larry played a game of bouncing off the windowsill into the floor, seeming altogether unaware of the chaos he was about to unleash. Immediately, Rufus attacked, but what was simply a play instinct turned all too readily into something much more primeval. The room erupted into chaos, a whirlwind of fur and desperation. Beverly sprinted into the living room, her heart racing from the sound of the desperate yowl and the fight that followed. The dog and the cat were all tangled up in a whirl of fur in one horrifying moment. The fun fight between them turned deadly. "No, Rufus, stop!" Beverly shrieked, her voice cracking in terror as she tried hard to pull the two of them apart. But it was too late. Larry lay still, his body limp, the life extinguished from his once vibrant frame. Rufus stood frozen, panting hard, his eyes wide with confusion and fear. The momentary thrill of the chase faded, replaced by a chilling realization of what he had done. His heart raced, not from the adrenaline of the chase, but from the overwhelming weight of guilt settling in. Beverly sank onto her knees, the weight of grief crashing over her like a tidal wave. At this commotion, the children came running up to the door and were struck with horror. It was their dead cat lying there on the floor. "Mommy, what happened?" Amelia said, tears running down her cheeks. Beverly barely was able to utter the faintest whisper as her heart shattered while embracing Larry's lifeless body. "It'll be okay," she whispered, knowing it wasn't. The Evans home was silent in the days that followed. Everyone missed Larry's soft purrs and playfulness, so that his absence was felt, which was perceivable by the children. Beverly tried to bring matters to normalcy for Peter and Amelia, but the tragedy of their loss was potent in the air. The world had been turned upside down for Rufus. Instead of all the vibrant energy that once filled his life, he roamed about the house with haunting emptiness. He felt as if he was in a dark tunnel, with no way out, the laughter of the children echoing faintly in the background. The children's laughter sounded so distant, swept away by the increasing bout of guilt nibbling at him relentlessly. He used to think of Larry as an opponent to be swatted away, but now he stood face to face with reality. Beverly could see the change. If she came home early, Rufus would no longer run to the door. His eyes were cast down on the floor, the once bright spark now extinguished. Her heart grew sore for him, and she realized how much trauma he was going through. One night she was lying on the floor next to Rufus, running her fingers behind his ears in a soothing gesture. "Oh, Rufus," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "You didn't mean for this to happen. I know you didn't." Deep down, though, she couldn't help but feel betrayed. Larry was part of their family, and though the good old boy of Bonanza Creek had never meant any harm, he had taken a life. As weeks went by, Rufus increasingly felt burdened with his conscience. Sometimes he'd end up by the window, where Larry had used to sit on the sill. At times he would let out soft voices, as if calling for the cat. The memories haunted him, The way Larry had flicked his tail as if challenging Rufus to chase, the way he had meowed from out of reach. Each echo of those moments twisted the knife deeper into Rufus's heart. One afternoon, Beverly took Rufus out into the park to take the air, hoping that some fresh air might perk him up. Still in the middle of the trees and children's laughter, Rufus could not shake the burden of his misdeed. He would pick up the scent of other animals and growl at the emptiness, moving his snout in search of the familiar scent of Larry, only to be met with the stark reality of loss. At home, it was to ache as Beverly's heart reflected over her friend, who used to be so full of life and humor. She decided to seek some help, hoping to find a way to ease his burden and bring back some appearance of joy to his life. "Perhaps a change of scenery is what you need," she whispered to Rufus, as tears fell while looking at him. After much reflection, Beverly called a local pet behaviorist, a gentle soul named Marissa, who specialized in trauma recovery for pets. When Marissa arrived, she brought many years of experience and understanding, her gentle demeanor putting Beverly at ease. Marissa got down beside Rufus and offered him treats and soothing words. "I know you've been through a lot, buddy," she said softly, "but I believe we can work through this together." Marissa worked with Rufus, training him by setting boundaries while also making him aware of his feelings of guilt. They both strolled around, played games, and had sessions that would involve positive reinforcement. One afternoon, while Marissa played fetch with Rufus in the yard, a stray cat suddenly ran by the fence. Rufus saw it, and like always, he tensed up and readied himself to chase. But this time, instead of running after the cat, he stopped himself. He stood still for a moment, looking at the cat, then back at Marissa. His bark came out soft, unsure. Marissa smiled and called him over, and, to her surprise, Rufus came back without hesitation. It was small, but it was a big step for him. He didn't seem as scared or guilty this time. Beverly, watching from nearby, saw the change too. Rufus was learning to let go of his past, little by little. Beverly watched as Rufus struggled to heal, his once lively spirit now weighed down by guilt and sorrow. He spent his days in the same spots where he and Larry had played, his energy drained and his eyes filled with sadness. Realizing that Rufus needed more than just comfort, Beverly made the heartbreaking decision to put him up for adoption. "He needs to be around other dogs, to learn from them, and to heal. I can't bear to see him like this," she confided to Marissa, her voice trembling. Marissa nodded understandingly. "Sometimes that's all a dog needs, to have a fresh start. You're showing real courage in this, and it says a lot about how much you care for him." With a heavy heart, Beverly took Rufus to the shelter. The moment they entered, barking and playful growls filled the air. For the very first time in weeks, there was a flicker of interest in his eyes. His ears perked up. Rufus lagged, his tail tucked between his legs. But soon enough, a group of dogs bound over toward the newcomer, ready to play. "See? They want to play with you," Beverly encouraged while kneeling to Rufus's level. "You are going to be all right." "I know it's scary, Rufus," she said softly, "but you have to let go. You have to allow yourself to heal." With one last hug and tearful goodbye, Beverly left Rufus in the shelter's care, feeling that it was perhaps the best thing to do, but still very heavy on her shoulders. At the shelter, Rufus began to settle down, but would not forget his past. While playing with the other dogs, part of him remained lost and broken. The shelter workers recognized his struggle, so they decided to help him differently. They began documenting his journey, taking videos of Rufus interacting with the other dogs, showcasing his gentle nature and the love he still had to give. They posted the videos online, appealing for a family that could provide the right environment for him, a place where he could thrive, make new friends, and learn to set boundaries. "Rufus is a sweet dog who's been through a lot," said one of the shelter workers while describing him in one of the videos. "He is looking for a family that will advocate for him, somebody who understands his past, and will be able to set him on the path toward a brighter future." Finally, after what felt like a century, a family emerged. A very nice couple with 2 children who had recently lost their dog. They came to the shelter and spent time with Rufus, and their hearts opened up for him fast enough.